Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Crypto Talks. My name is Phil. That's Rob. That's Rob. And yeah, it's back to TA Monday. We're going to try to do this one a little bit quicker. We're trying a new kind of layout on how we're going to do this. And we're going to actually look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Injective, and Render today, if we find the time, which I think we should, because we're going to try to push through this. So I'm going to go over everything in the dollar denomination, and then I'll push it over to Rob to kind of look at each one of these against Bitcoin, to give you even a better kind of overview of what's going on with everything. Sounds good? Cool.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, cool. So I'm just going to pop off right away and do Bitcoin, because... whoops, that's not the right button. That's the right button. We always do Bitcoin first. Obviously, we can't compare Bitcoin to Bitcoin. So Rob, you're off the hook on this one. But what we can do, though, is we can just have a quick look here on Bitcoin. This is the charts that we've always been looking at. It should be familiar to you if you've been here before. And not much has changed since we had our last stream. We had this big pump up right here after kind of ranging here between these fib levels. And finally, we cracked through this fib level right here at 50, I think it was 49.6 or something like that. And the yellow line right here is the 50K mark. Hopefully you can see that. I'll actually zoom in just a tad. So what we're expecting here with Bitcoin right now is actually quite simple. We are kind of stuck here above this fib level and above the 50K psychological level. This green line right here is this peak from in March 2022. So it's a very old one. Very strong one, also high Imre and high Kavik. And so we have some fairly strong support here. We actually have some, we have had a failure of this previously when the ETFs were opened. So right here, so we actually have quite a good, area right here with some pretty strong support. And so we're expecting this to kind of move sideways for a while, I think, because we want to see the daily RSI come down a little bit, maybe do this type of bounce that we had here to then come back up, potentially like that. And that makes perfect sense in terms of the RSI at least. And we need everything to cool down. Even the weekly RSI is quite overextended still. So
we say that, however, look at the last time the RSI was at this exact same level, and
yes.
So to say the RSI needs to cool down, yes, it can. That doesn't mean the price doesn't have to.
Exactly.
The price can continue up even while the RSI is cooling down. The RSI can only reach 100, and that's if you have 14 days of absolute perfect green. Then the RSI reaches 100. But generally,
you don't really see that now.
Yeah, the volatility brings the RSI down, and it resets it gradually and on multiple time frames. So, if this wants to move, if there's no Bitcoin for sale at this price, and given the sentiment, then maybe do you want to sell your Bitcoin right now? I'm not releasing my spot Bitcoin right now.
no, and there's good reason for all that actually too, because like I said, to reset the RSI, we can go either just sideways or slightly down, just like that, kind of like we have done right here, or we can do what we did right here, which is kind of just slowly chugging upwards. Right now, it looks like it's doing something like that, and that would make sense to me because, and this is the big reason for this, we have a lot of buy pressure from the Bitcoin ETFs right now. We're adding 900 new Bitcoins every day on average to the market from mining new Bitcoins, but the buy pressure from these ETFs that came out, the American ETFs like BlackRock and Fidelity and all these, they buy up about 6,000 to 7,000 a day. So we're actually eating up more than that's coming onto the market. So the buy pressure is there continuously. The dumpage from GBTC is kind of gone. It's still trickling out because people are more than likely selling their GBTC to move that over to another ETF, maybe. Who knows? Or they're taking profits because it was cheaper before and they just want to get out of it now. Who knows? We'll have to see. But I know that there is a lot of buy pressure there, and it's going to continue on being that way, especially when the halving occurs, because then that 900 bitcoins are going to go down to 450 bitcoins per day, which will eat up the OTC desks and everything much faster. But yeah, so
okay,
just to round off real quick.
Yes and no. So can I just make a point on
Mhm,
that first?
yeah.
Yes, however, if we see the inflows into the ETFs at the moment, I think the number I've seen is somewhere along the lines of about $500 million a week. Is it?
Something like that, yeah.
So, okay, so what we have to decide is what is the longevity of that input? Is that people who are first movers moving into the market en masse because they want to get themselves positioned with their current allocation, i.e. taking money they already have and putting it into Bitcoin? That's a different thing from them allocating new money. And so how much of what we're seeing now as an inflow is simply essentially portfolio rebalancing versus long-term, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual demand? That's still a bit unknown. And if we say that that's $500 million a week, for example, well, yeah, okay, at the moment, then that's exceeding the amount of mined Bitcoin. And if you have a halving, then yes, of course, the amount of Bitcoin is halved. But if we go up to $250,000 a coin and you have 450 Bitcoin per day, then that's still $112 million per day of buy pressure, of sell pressure being added to the market. That's fresh Bitcoin being added. So yes, right now Bitcoin is cheap. I think we're all well aware Bitcoin is cheap, but the halving is only effective in so much as the price goes up, this ETF pressure is, we can say in dollar terms, constant. I would hope to think it increases, but that's what hype cycles are about. Yes, okay, we need that increased liquidity to drive us higher. But overall, if we say that the standard baseline input is constant, then as Bitcoin moves higher and higher in price, that inflow buys fewer and fewer Bitcoin. So this pace of gain at the moment, enjoy it, ride it. It can go a lot higher if these rates of inflow of the ETF carry on. Absolutely, this is going a lot higher. And to be honest, all the TA that we do is kind of irrelevant. It doesn't really matter. Every dip is a buy. And you can say that over the last year and a half, every single dip, every single 20% dip has been a buy. I think we are both in agreement at some point there'll be a significantly larger pullback. However, it doesn't have to be from here.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, you're right. And I want to say as well that, in terms of buying pressure, what we're seeing right now is a lot of money, right? However, BlackRock has a tool that a lot of really, really rich people use, or that they use to give recommendations to their customers, which is called Aladdin, which when they tested it, the classic 60-40 portfolio changed to basically being, I think it was, actually don't quote me on this, but I want to remember it being like, you should be 40% Bitcoin.
Oh yeah.
So when they're probably going to have that to tell their customers to put like 1%, let's say, just toying with a number here. Let's say BlackRock tells their customers to put 1% into Bitcoin from their portfolio. That is a lot of money that will go into the Bitcoin ETFs at that point. And when I say a lot, I mean, whoa, a lot.
An obscene amount. Yeah, amount into an illiquid market.
Yeah. Anyway, I just want to do a real quick thing here. For us to get to the all-time high, which is around this fib level right here, which is our next kind of resistance, we only need to go up 29%, give or take, on Bitcoin. And that's not really a huge move. I mean, yes, it's a lot of money that has to come in. But, just looking at this pump from the previous bounce, for us to get to the next level, it's not that bad, right? We're pretty close to all-time highs.
So this is where, when you say it's a lot of money to take us up there, if right now every single seller removed their sell orders from here to 70,000, bought $1 worth of Bitcoin, the price shoots up to $1 of Bitcoin, it's to $70,000, instantaneously. Of course it does. So that's it, as in it can take a lot of money to get us up there, assuming there is Bitcoin available to sell. If there's no Bitcoin available to sell, it can take $1 to move us up. If the order books are thin, it's going to keep pumping. And I think maybe this is just something that we can move on to before we just move away from Bitcoin.
From the Bitcoin one, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd just like to maybe just move onto my screen for a second. So I've got this is the CoinGlass website. CoinGlass gives a whole heap of information on the crypto, just the crypto market in general. If you've never checked it out, please go and check it out. It's a great website. So what I'm on here is the funding rates for the futures market. And there was something I saw yesterday, because I've currently got an open futures long on Bitcoin, and it's coin margin futures, and I looked at the funding rate and I was paying 0.04% every 8 hours to hold on to that position. And this is something people really don't talk about enough when it comes to trading futures, is how devastating the funding rates can get at times. And this is particularly on altcoins. On Bitcoin, it's generally quite stable. On altcoins, you can pay well over 100% interest per year, essentially, to hold on to a position. So at 0.04% per 8 hours, essentially you can times that by 3 and times that by 365. That was a 43.8% interest rate. That's what I was paying on my long. And bear in mind, this is a leverage long, so this is larger than my actual position. So it is possible for funding rates to completely eat you up when you are trading futures, if you're trying to hold a position long term. And so that's where timing is something that can come in. If you are a futures trader, do consider this, because it is something you don't think about until you come to close your position and you go, great, I made 30% profit, and you realize you've been holding it for 2 or 3 months, and you look at your actual interest, you look at how much you've paid, and you made about 7%. And that's happened to me before, where I've looked at a position and didn't realize it and gone, oh shit, where's all my money gone? And you just handed it to the people who were shorting. Now, what is very interesting, something that I checked literally just before on stream and I hadn't seen, is the live funding rates. So this value, which, as I say, was 0.04% yesterday, is now down to 0.01%, which is essentially neutral. 0.01 is the normal neutral funding rate on Binance and many of the other leading futures exchanges. So funding has reset. There's no longer this over-leveraged market where the longs were opening themselves up to an extreme level of price drop and liquidation because they were over leveraged long. And that's what the funding rate can tell you and give you a very, very clear picture of, is when people are just aping long. I'm going to buy futures, I'm going to bet the house, I'm going to bet all my Bitcoin on the fact that this thing that's up massively is going to keep going up. And all that does is invites sophisticated traders that have more money, that have no emotion, that don't give a shit about Bitcoin. They don't care about what the price of Bitcoin is. If they see that you have a weakness, if you have a position that is over leveraged that they can exploit, they will exploit it. Simply because they can, because for them, making 6% on a Sunday afternoon is a very good use of their time. And it's something to be aware of. And so what we've seen over the last day for this funding rate to have come back so heavily to neutral is people have started to pile on shorts. People have started to take short positions, look at it and go to Bitcoin, I'm not so sure this is going to go up. Or people that have already got open longs have closed their longs. And the way that you can see how much the longs have moved is looking at the open interest. And doesn't particularly, I don't know how easy you can see the open interest here on Binance.
There's
here it is. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, there you go. So you can see the open interest has, on the long side, has dropped significantly over the last day. This is over the altcoins, isn't it? But you can see okay. So we've got a bit. Never mind, that was nonsense. We've got $1 billion worth of open interest. That's not particularly high. Or $16 billion of open interest, it says there. I've seen it a lot higher than that for the whole crypto market. We've seen many billions of dollars. So yeah, the market's not particularly over leveraged. And so we can go up is basically the short takeaway from that. When you see funding rate that's at sky high, just be careful, because if you go long, people are betting against you, and they're betting against you with more sophistication and knowledge than the new.
Yeah,
And that's
for
about
sure.
it for Bitcoin.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And the thing here is as
Nice.
well. Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. No, but the thing is, I'll just put my thing on here real quick, and then I'll jump over. That's yours. And then I'll jump over to look at ETH real quick. So we're gonna be doing these, like the Bitcoin piece of all these TA Mondays are gonna be much longer because it gives us an opportunity to give you a lot of information on what's going on. And then when we start talking about the altcoins, you have all that information with you already to understand kind of how, so we can quickly go over the other ones. So real quick, prediction time. I don't like to do predictions, but I'm all for a sideways move for a while here until the RSI on the daily at least comes down a little bit. And I don't really see it going down from here and continuing kind of this trend that we have right here. I don't really see that happening. I do see a sideways move or a small dip just down to like 48 maybe, or potentially just this type of move where we just continue up slowly and then exploding. Potentially, chugging along for a couple of months and then the halving happens and then it just shoots straight up. That could potentially happen as well. So the prediction is bullish, right? Overall, over the course of a couple of months, it is bullish for sure. And yeah, that's about it. I do want to just look at ETH, Solana, Injective, and Render real quick because they have been doing some pretty fun stuff here. So for ETH, what I'm going to give you here is the support and the resistance levels, kind of like we did on Bitcoin, but much quicker. So for Ethereum, it's been doing really well here lately. And, we've seen a couple of days here where Bitcoin has been flat and Solana, for example, has been going down while ETH has been going up, which is something that Rob was talking about a lot before. If you've seen us before, where it's like, okay, people are kind of rolling back into ETH from other alts because there is strength there and ETH is a good place to put your money overall. Just using fundamental analysis without even thinking about the TA, it's a good play. So we just cracked through a double top here. It kind of failed the double top here a couple of days ago, just for a day, and then it just shot through. You can see how it exploded right here. And then we went through this right here is called the golden pocket on the Fibonacci levels. It's between the 0.65 and the 0.618. And we kind of just exploded through that, and then we kind of got a little bit of a bounce on that, which is bullish. It's good, and that's probably why we're kind of moving up here. The next fib level for ETH is going to end up right here, which kind of correlates to this weekly close right here at $3,500. The fib level is at $3,400. So for me, if Bitcoin continues going up, or even if Bitcoin goes sideways here and ETH makes its move, getting up here is definitely in the cards. And that is only from here a 16% move for ETH, which is nothing really for ETH. ETH can make much bigger moves than that.
I say that is where my first take profit is on my ETH long position. It's exactly at 3,400 or just below 3,400. Yeah,
same here for sure. That's all I have to say about ETH really. And I think Rob, you want to say something. And by the way, just to add to this, the RSI is overbought quite heavily. However, we've seen the RSI move along that for quite some time on ETH and on other cryptos before, so it doesn't mean that it needs to come down right away. We can still go upwards slowly and get that correction down on the RSI. So ETH is looking pretty good. I mean, it's basically nothing here until $3,400 really. Doesn't mean that it's gonna go, but it can.
Yeah, and ultimately this is it. The ETF narrative is also something that's going to roll over. Yes. People will have bought Bitcoin not because of the ETF, but because of the news of the ETF. They will have bought the fact that they expected an ETF to come. As soon as the ETF comes, fine, see you in a bit, bye, go on. I'm going to move on to the next one because and there is more gains to be had in something that hasn't moved yet. And I've been saying this and being disappointed with ETH personally because I expected it to move a lot sooner than it has. But Bitcoin's stolen the show. Nobody has had any fundamental reason to buy Ethereum because Solana is coming along as the new fancy thing to put in the altcoin space, and Bitcoin has had the ETF narrative and obviously has the fundamental narrative with the macro backdrop, which is just so pro Bitcoin that it's just not even funny. So it's ETH is kind of is being dunked on very heavily right now, and this is the funny thing, is that you see it every single time. I've been around here since 2017. I've seen it every year, and I mean every single year. ETH is useless. Nobody uses it. It's slow. It's got no dApps. It's got no use case. It's going to die. It's going to be replaced. Here's the next ETH killer. And then it goes and absolutely destroys the market for a while. And it will do this over time and time and time and time again. And it's there's always this old adage of people talk about gas fees being too expensive on ETH. And my response is no, gas fees are always exactly as expensive as they need to be, because they are only as expensive as the demand to use the network. If you don't want to make a transaction, you don't have to. That they are telling you up front, this is how much your transaction will cost. And if you have a use for that blockchain, you will use that transaction. So the fact that that ETH is able to hold $7, $10, $15 transaction fees for days at a time, that is a sign of network usage. And I mention this a lot when we talk about transaction speed, and TPS is a big thing that ETH gets dunked on for again, because it's a dinosaur. It's slow. However, it also has more TVL locked on it than total value locked on it than every other blockchain combined. So that makes it a behemoth in its own right without any other context. So there's always been this notion of that we've said that Bitcoin's going to run, and now the ETF narrative will move on to ETH, and you can see that quite clearly through the ETH BTC chart, which maybe we can just pull up.
There we go.
Yep, there we go. So we've had this chart on. I've not really done much to it for quite a while. Even today, I've just kept it as it is. And this sort of resistance line, it's been trading up, down around it, but it's kind of broken it so many times now that it's pretty irrelevant. We had a fake out above this downtrend, and this downtrend goes all the way back to September of 2022. So a year and a half, essentially nearly downtrend. We broke it, had a fake out, and came all the way back down, tested the bottom, and now it's broken out again. So I'm of the belief that there's only so long that ETH can stay suppressed versus Bitcoin. I think that for a whole bunch of fundamental reasons, it's still got room to move. And there's one big thing that you have to look at when it comes, the same thing that I'll always point out, and that's Bitcoin dominance and what Bitcoin dominance is doing, because that tells you where ETH is going to go. And it will tell you where that rotation is, because if the rotation is into the altcoin market, then ETH will be the signal. ETH is the guide for how the altcoin is going to move. And over the last few days, we've seen, as we pointed out last week, if it's going to top here, it did successfully top here in Bitcoin dominance. We're now seeing a drop, and altcoins are continuing to run. Now, this looks like a pretty toppy pattern. This kind of reminds me of mid-2021 in terms of Bitcoin price action, where we just had this continuous pump of Bitcoin, and then it'd dump again. And this is obviously versus the altcoin market. And so, what we're seeing is a lot of indecision and a lot of fighting for which is more bullish right now. That's what the chart is telling you. Bitcoin's makes a move, and then altcoins go, no. All that money that you've just pumped into the market, I'm going to take that. And then Bitcoin pumps again, and altcoins go, no, I'm going to take that. And eventually we need to see some sort of breakout of this range whereby the altcoins have what is normally a very short, very exuberant, aggressive hype cycle, and we see Bitcoin dominance drop like a stone to below 50%, probably to somewhere closer to back down towards the lows. And if this is the case and you see Bitcoin dominance down here in a short space of time, your altcoins are going to get absolutely wrecked if you hold on to them for much longer. Is a likely that's a likelihood. You see these drops. This drop lasted from April 2021 to May. It was a month, basically. A month and a half. April and May, 2 months was that move. That was where all the altcoin gains were made. You could have sat holding alts for 2 years and barely made anything against Bitcoin, and then boom, in 2 months, all the gains were made.
Yep.
And that's how timing can affect you, because if we say while we're talking about ETH, all you've done if you held ETH for the last year is stagnated your Bitcoin value.
Yep.
You haven't gained any Bitcoin. And if you're not gaining Bitcoin by holding an altcoin, then you take an unnecessary risk. And we'll see, I think, from the next coins, which are all doing quite well, what the flip side of that is.
Yeah, precisely. Which is also why we're kind of doing this way. So yeah, moving on from ETH then. So we're bullish on ETH, bullish on Bitcoin. Obviously, when Bitcoin moves, everything kind of moves, but there is, like you said, kind of a back and forth type thing, and that has to do with a lot of timing, really. And so I want to look at Solana, which is one of my biggest holdings personally. Obviously not as big as Bitcoin, but it's one of the ones that I've really put a lot of effort into, kind of accumulating a bunch of. And Solana has had a very, very good year so far. We had a really long sideways move here, during 2023, and then suddenly it just exploded towards the end. And Solana, I think I did like 1,000% or something in a year or something like that. But now and this is why I love fib levels. It is, and these fib levels are actually pulled. Normally I do them weekly on the weekly close, but these ones I've actually pulled from the daily wicks, just because they were so extreme, and I felt like it was more worth, and they were lining up a lot better with everything else as well, so that made more sense for this one. So looking at where we are right now for Solana, it's actually, we're in a very strong uptrend right here, and maybe it looks like it's slowing down, but it did the same thing right here. We've bounced on the fib level right here perfectly. I mean, it literally dead on. We also failed this fib level right on it as well. And so please, if you don't use fib levels, start using fib levels. They're really great. But yeah, we're currently sitting in a range between $80 and $127-ish in terms of where the Solana range is currently at. And as you can see, when you zoom out, it really is just a sideways move in the grand scheme of things here. Big correction, yes, but still, we can carry on moving like this for a while. But like we said on Bitcoin, when we get these sideways moves or kind of a ranging type thing, the RSI tends to come down. And obviously, this is violently chugging along up and down because of the volatility of Solana here. But overall, Solana right now is looking like it's going to hold this uptrend for a while. I mean, that's what this line is right here. And maybe we'll get a double top. So what I'm expecting to see here is it's going to come back up to here where we were before on the fib level, and it's going to attempt to crack through that. And that, I think, will only happen if Bitcoin moves and if Ethereum moves. But then again, Solana can make big moves even though Bitcoin is sideways. So it's a bit of a tricky one, this one. But overall, Solana is looking really good. We might still fail that double top, which means we'll come down again, which would make me happy because then I can buy more. But again, we're at the same type of, when Bitcoin did this at 48K for Bitcoin, when it did this, I'll just go back to that real quick. That's the same time, same day, everything. Same for ETH, right here. And obviously ETH is far off that still, but Solana is very close. So if Bitcoin starts moving here towards the all-time high, Solana will very likely crack through this and start moving up towards its own all-time high, which is a much bigger move than Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin would have to move, I think it was 20, what did we say, 29%, 27%, something like that? Let's call it 30.
Something like that, yeah.
A 30% move for Solana would be just right here. It's nothing. So move back to all-time high would be 140%. And that might sound a bit crazy, but is it really? Not really.
No.
But so just to simplify this kind of prediction here, we are ranging right now. You should be expecting a continued range between here. If we correct, I don't really see it doing anything else than coming back down to 80 again. Maybe double bottoming, because Solana likes to double bottom. You can see that, especially here. This was a double bottom. It looks weird on the daily, but on the 4-hourly, it looks much better. But you're essentially double bottoming with Solana on many occasions. Over here, we have a double bottom right here, but that failed, obviously. But overall, like on the shorter time frames, it's much easier to see it. Solana likes to double bottom, at least in my experience. So yeah, I'm expecting this to continue up and at least try this fib level. If it fails, then yeah, and actually I don't know why there's a green line right here. I just noticed that. But the range is large, so be ready for that if you're looking at Solana and you want to get into Solana. There might be a pullback. If there isn't, and we go back up here and you see it, with force breaking through this, that's where I would start looking at buying. I would rather buy that breakout than just, wing it here and just buy here, than have it fail down here and you miss out on that sell, or you sell there thinking that it might fail and it just continues. That's going to piss you off even more, selling too early. But yeah, Solana is looking really good. It's got a lot of good things going on with it. And yeah, that's Solana for me. I'm not sure what it looks like on Bitcoin though, against Bitcoin, but I know you do, Rob.
Come take a look.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, I drew some fib levels too.
Oh, opacity, bro.
Yeah, I was just drawing the other one. So yeah, Solana versus Bitcoin. I was having a look at the fib levels. It's played a bit, but I wouldn't put that much faith on them really, because it's a comparative. It's not a direct measurement. Yeah. The thing to take a look with Solana BTC is we actually had a 32% drop versus Bitcoin recently from this high. So yeah, even though this is a perfect example of something which has done outrageously well. However, if you can time the top, which is of course easier said than done, and I wouldn't expect you necessarily to. However, you do have to bear in mind that these things that go up very, very fast relative to Bitcoin can also drop very quick and very hard relative to Bitcoin. Yep. And if you are somebody who is buying altcoins with the intention of increasing your Bitcoin stack, there is only one way to do that, and that is to sell your altcoins into Bitcoin. That is to realize some of that altcoin gain into BTC. Whether or not you catch the top doesn't really matter if your plan is to increase your stack overall. And so what we're seeing now with Solana is not necessarily the same level of bullishness that we see on the USDT chart, where, okay, yeah, we've got basically a sort of gradually uptrending, meandering line of support, but a much steeper. Obviously, if you include the drop from the top, that's just a bit ridiculous. So I won't really bother with that. But we may form some sort of triangle like that and continue to consolidate. And so here is a really good opportunity for Solana to actually show: is it strong for the broader cycle, or is it weak versus the broader cycle? Has it had its run, and is it now going to take a back step for several months? It doesn't mean it's over. Doesn't mean by any means. I agree with everything that you're saying on the dollar chart. But if Bitcoin goes and rises up to 70K, and meanwhile Solana gets to say 110, 120, doesn't really do anything. If that were to happen, then this chart, the Solana BTC chart, would be a big drop. And this happens on every single altcoin chart. Don't think it can't happen, that a bullish coin can continue to be bullish but spend significant amount of time underperforming Bitcoin. So yeah, Solana's in a consolidation range. I'm going to call it very neutral after a very big range upwards, which is, what was this price move in terms of Bitcoin? Was
a lot,
450% relative to Bitcoin. Let it calm down. The expectation that something which has already got a very large market cap, that is going to just keep on pounding and pounding and pounding month after month, completely obliterating everything, Not necessarily. It may do.
No.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it may well do, but you cannot expect it. And even Ethereum, I'll just go back to the ETH BTC chart because there's a really good example of this in the BTC chart, which is that here's 2017 and ETH, which blew Bitcoin away in terms of gains, in terms of dollar gains, actually made its all-time high in June of 2017, not in February 2018 when it made its dollar all-time high. And in that period of time, it dropped 85% against Bitcoin.
Yep.
85%, and then it went and ran during that time. Go and just have a look at the USD chart. So after that point, it dropped 85%, and then it went and ran 300% back up to all-time high. So these moves can be brutal, but ETH as a move, the fact that it hit. Oh, sorry, no, I'm doing about the same thing. I'm looking at the wrong period of time. It ran a lot more than that. Yep, there we go, 400%. But even despite that, if you'd have let it go, let's just have a look at a longer ETH chart because that one cuts it off. If you'd have sold your ETH here in June of 2017 at $300 and something, that was a magnificently good trade compared to selling it at $1,400 only 6 months later. The value of the trade was swapping your ETH for Bitcoin in the middle of the cycle and then looking at Bitcoin and going, all of these other smaller altcoins, these are now worth betting my Bitcoin for. And ETH, although ETH carried on doing very well, all the ETH money, what did it do? Started rotating into those altcoins as well. So timing can be huge. And yes, the coin that is doing incredibly well can continue to do well in dollar terms, but may get decimated in Bitcoin terms.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is something that we definitely recommend people looking at. Like if you're in the crypto space and you're looking at an altcoin, whatever it may be, it's always a good idea to look at that coin versus Bitcoin just to see kind of where it's at overall and the strength it has against Bitcoin when Bitcoin is doing things, and if it's following Bitcoin or if it's kind of stuck when Bitcoin is stuck, whatever it may be, you can find some correlation there. But we do need to move on though to the next one, which is Injective. And Injective is one of these coins where I just thought, I like this, right? And I noticed it quite late, to be fair. But it's been a really great one for me. And I keep forgetting to switch the thing here. And I'm very sorry about this chart. It looks like crap. It's a lot of lines there. But I'm going to remove some of them just for the sake of saving your eyes. But yeah, we had this massive run up on Injective from the end of 2022 to the peak where we just was 3,500%, which is just a madness, right? And right now you can see we have a long-term fib level right here, which is based on the weekly close from the all-time high and the weekly close on the low. And you see how this is double bottoming too, by the way, not perfectly, but essentially. And we had this big move and we broke through this, and one of the reasons to why it's kind of stuck right here for me, at first I was kind of thinking, why is it stuck in the middle of nowhere? Because it's stuck just above the all-time high. It's not really coming down to it to test it. And so what I did was I took another fib level, and by the way, here's the next target, which is a crazy number to me, $111 for Injective. And that's really, I mean, we're in price discovery here. We have nothing to compare this to. So this might just continue on doing, these type of things, right? Until it just stops doing that. So it's very hard for us to give you a prediction on where this might go. However,
I mean, just to do some very quick maths, if it's currently at $37,
yeah,
right? And so, hang on, it's really easy maths actually. Yeah, 100 million total supply. So that would only give $110 would still only give Injective a fully diluted market cap of $11 billion.
Yeah, which is
So
not very much for
not
something like Injective.
not relative to other leaders in the market, which
Precisely.
Injective being a layer one, an interoperable layer one. If it's gaining users, if it's gaining adoption, it's going to do well. Simple as that.
Yeah, precisely. And the move from where we are right now to this, and this is what I was trying to say. This is why we like fib levels, because what fib levels can do is they can give you a prediction according to basically just a mathematical equation where it just gives you these basically just lines. To simplify this, I'm not going to go into like how it works exactly because that'll take forever, but a move from where we are right now to the next fib level, which is the only place where I can say I can see a resistance line, is 200%. Is that worth 3x in your bag over the course of a couple of months? I mean, it's not a bad investment, and it's looking at the daily RSI. I mean, it's already started bouncing here, and one of the things that I noticed that kept us in this range is that I took a fib level from where the exponential uptrend started. I think it was there or there maybe, like so, and I pulled it to the all-time high, and this is where you see the fib levels really play. And I think I actually pulled it from here, from where it just started when we bounced on the line right here. And seeing how the fib levels are being used by other people, you can see how it bounced here, and sort of in there, but you can see the range is really there, right? And I mean, if it's double topped here, if it triple tops here, there is nothing stopping it really, except for people taking profits. But there's no real clear level until you get up to this fib level, really, in my book. So I really like Injective. I have a considerable bag of it now. Full disclosure, I am invested in this quite heavily, and it's looking like a really strong place still, even after this type of move. And mainly it's because it's very new and it's a very, very good project, if you ask me. And so yeah, I'm definitely bullish on Injective. I don't think after a consolidation period that is this long that it's going to turn around and fall down when the RSI has already fallen as much as it has. And yeah, so that's me. I'm not sure what it looks like against Bitcoin, but Rob, I'm sure you got the chart ready.
I got the chart ready.
Okay, let's see if I can find your button. There it is. There we go.
So it's very sort of there's no TA on it because Injective on the Bitcoin chart is all up. Basically, it had a big long consolidation period from 2021 and 2022. As with everything, as mentioned, it dropped a significant amount from its peak. 87% versus Bitcoin from the top. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Is even the good stuff, if you time it badly, is bad stuff. So you could have bought this at a bad time and lost most of the Bitcoin valuation of your bag. You buy it on a good time, and from bottom to top versus Bitcoin, we're currently looking at 1,600%. Currently, it's at 1,100%. Now, it doesn't look particularly great, and this could be it. This literally might be 1,600% versus Injective. This could be the all-time high versus Bitcoin that Injective makes for this cycle. I don't know that for certain, but exactly as with ETH, this might go sideways now versus the dollar, or crawl upwards for several months. Meanwhile, Bitcoin keeps on moving, and so the Injective Bitcoin chart will look like crap. It still may then just turn around and do a 3x up to your target.
Yep.
So what it is, obviously there is no financial advice here, but the trick to sort of looking at this is simply, even if you don't necessarily sell your bags, I would never say to somebody, oh yeah, sell now, behave. Bitcoin's not even broken all-time high, but look at the patterns of how your altcoins are performing against Bitcoin. If they've had if they've had an outrageous run and then drop back down 80%, then yeah, you definitely should have taken some profit versus Bitcoin, because there are other alts that from here are going to do 5-10x versus Bitcoin. And if you are allocated to them, if you can pick the right horses at the right times, then you can massively multiply out your Bitcoin. Alternatively, if you think Injectives is going to go much higher this cycle, and I think that's a very fair point. Like I said, $110 is only an $11 billion market cap. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Then all you can treat these comparative charts is, should I be buying Bitcoin now or should I be buying Injective now? If we just pull up our strategy on it, for example, we did get a buy entry on Injective.
It's a soft one though.
Soft one, and it was after a big pullback, a big reversal from the drop. So I wouldn't put too much faith on that, but still, we got a big chunky set of sells here, and then you're getting a buy here. If you can time those kind of moves, then it's very realistic that you can, even if I'm not saying buy and sell Injective or Bitcoin, but if you said, Injective's going ape shit, I'm going to stop buying that, I'm going to buy Bitcoin instead. And then I'm going to wait for a bottom of Injective to Bitcoin before I allocate my Bitcoin to Injective. Doing something like that can massively reduce your risk, keeps you as exposed to the market, and can enable you to actually buy these altcoin bags at an opportune moment, which is when it's genuinely actually oversold. And you can see here that on the daily, Injective BTC didn't quite touch it, but got very close to oversold on the RSI. Just happened to be exactly the bottom, and why we always talk about the RSI. So you could have timed that purchase and made a much better buy than anyone from the 15th of December to the 15th of February. The best purchase in 2 months if you'd have actually bought Bitcoin instead of Injective. Doesn't mean Injective's a bad buy, but timing can make a huge difference.
Yeah, timing is, and this is why you do TA as well. Like the whole point of TA for someone, if you're watching us here and you're kind of new to this, the point of TA has nothing to do with, is this a good project? Is this altcoin a good buy? It has nothing to do with the fundamentals of it. The only thing you look at with the TA, and you're looking at charts like these, is to find a good time to get into something. So you don't just say, I like Ethereum right now, or you just found out about Solana or Injective and you're like, this sounds like a good project, I'm buying it, and then you buy a top. Like no, you do your TA, you look at it and you say, okay, I'm expecting this and that to happen, so I want to buy here when it's a good time. That's what TA is for. Just make sure you understand that before you start poking around with this stuff, okay? TA is just for timing. Really, that's the only thing it is for. If you want to know what's actually going to be good for your time preference, if you're a long-term person like myself, investing in something and holding on to it for a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, you have to do the fundamental analysis, which is super boring and takes a shit ton of time, and it's going to hurt your brain, but you have to do it. Don't just listen to me saying I like Injective. You go look at it, read about it.
So most of my altcoin portfolio, as everyone's sort of well aware if you watch the channel for a while, most of my altcoins are just traded on bots. I don't do any manual trading of altcoins really, because I don't trust them. I've spent so long losing money trying to trade them manually, not because I'm necessarily a bad trader, but just simply because they're just volatile and messy and a pain in the arse to trade, and so I leave them to an algorithm. Now, if we have an absolute blow off top, everything goes nuts, Bitcoin dominance drops to 40% in a few weeks, and we have a big blow off top, and then prices start dropping, all my bots will sell everything. I will then probably just basically turn that bot off for a couple of months and say, let's calm down and see what the market is. Let's see which coins are doing well. Let's just reevaluate. And then some coins I might completely drop. Some of those coins I drop, it would be a total mistake because they'll go on and do amazing things. But you can only look at and address the market as it comes to you, and then make decisions based on your own decision making and your own analysis.
Yeah. So, okay, we're starting to run out of time, so I'm gonna go into render real quick. It's a quick one, this one. No worries. And then Rob, if you want to, you can do the Bitcoin thing on it too. But I think it looks very similar to Injective. But here we go. So this is not my chart. That's my chart. Okay, so really cool. Here we have the daily charts on render, which is also one of my favorites in terms of finding an alpha. And I'm not going to go into what it is, but it's if you're interested, go and have a look at it on CoinMarketCap and read a little bit about it. But this one, same thing, weekly close to weekly close on the fib levels from top to bottom, and it's played these fib levels fairly well. It's been extremely volatile, but as you can see, like it's hit the fib here, hit it there, made a little bit of a bounce here, and here it's starting to get weird. So it's not really playing the fibs all around here. It's doing it fairly well, but it's not playing it as I would like it to. However, here it's sort of doing it pretty well, which is also why I'm kind of looking at this and saying this is very close to the all-time high in terms of, percentage just to the fib level. Right now we're only 10% away from the all-time high in terms of the weekly close. However, the move up from where we are right now on render to breaking the all-time high is a 41% pump, which is fairly big, but this is a very small coin compared to Solana or Ethereum or Bitcoin. This is about the same size, a little bit smaller than Injective, but it does have really, really great potential to keep moving here. Currently, it's sitting at, it's made some big moves right here recently. It's up at $6.3. The all-time high was 8.8, I would say, something like that. And the only thing I can say here is that I'm expecting this to kind of ignore this fib level because it's not really played the fibs here very much. But the only place where we have any type of resistance, if we're discarding this fib level, which is the weekly close, it's this right here, the all-time high. And if it breaks this while everything else is pumping and this follows it, there is nothing to go off after that. We're in price discovery. And the only thing I can say then is, the fib level, $40.50. That might sound ridiculous, but again, this is a very new coin compared to, it was still there during the bull market, but it's still very new.
Yeah. And also it wasn't fully developed. So just as if you are bullish on GPU capacity, on computer rendering, on things like compute power becoming more prevalent, and maybe you think that it's going to continue to be hard to get high-end chips around the world for whatever reason. This is
into that tomorrow.
Exactly. This is the sort of project that can, has a genuine use case to try and solve that. And so
for sure,
it has fundamental growth because the entire world is saying, this is something we need. Now, is that growth speculative? Is it sustainable? Is it going to reach a stupid price and drop 80%? Yes. Nobody knows what this is fundamentally valued at. Nobody's got a damn clue. All we can do is look at the chart and go, I think it's going to go up. And hopefully we're right.
Yeah.
But typically, the things that do well continue to do well. The things that break their all-time high go into price discovery mode. And exactly as we saw in Injective just before, once it breaks that all-time high, there is, these gains can go very quickly. And it becomes, where do you sell? Because as you say, we're in price discovery, so there's no resistance levels. There is only these fibs, these extensions, these guesses that say, okay, it's going to be up there. And if because of that, everybody has their sell orders staggered at different levels, so there's no wall. It's like an army marching through a flat plain and just coming across isolated soldiers and just picking them off one by one. There's no line, there's no defensive line, and so the price just keeps on moving.
And this is why we say, this is why we look for these resistance levels. Where do we have any previous tops and all these things? So $8.8 for render, or $8.7, whatever. Let's say 8.5. That's the only place where we can look at it and say, okay, there we can put a line there, and that's it. So, and that might be broken through as if it was not even there, right? So and I'd like to add as well, this is a project that is built on the Solana blockchain, just like, Python, for example, which is right here. We're not going to go into that. Or HNT is also built on Solana. And so if you're trying to find a top for something like Render, it might be a good idea to start looking at other Solana projects and Solana itself to see like, okay, that's starting to kind of top out here. And where you actually have levels where you can actually put some lines to stop it somewhere. And then you can use that as kind of one of your ways to analyze and see where you might be topping out on this as well. That doesn't always work, but it's one thing that you can actually do. And the funny part about all of this, as soon as Bitcoin and Solana and these other coins start breaking their all-time highs, then everything is in discovery. So then you will just have to wait, essentially, and just hope that you might have to layer out a little bit here, sell 10% of your bag here, maybe 10% there. That's never a bad idea to take profit, even if it's a bit too early, right? So there's that. Do you want to look at this real quick? We have like 4 minutes. Do you want to look at it for versus Bitcoin? I'm guessing
I
it looks
wouldn't bother. You could flick over, but literally,
it's just super quick then.
Looks
there
the
you
same.
Go. Yeah, looks the same.
Looks the same. It's going up. It's going to break. If it breaks the Bitcoin all-time high and the dollar all-time high around the same time, great. We've got two sets. So this is something that you can think about as well. When coins go in price discovery, if they've already had a cycle, they may not be anywhere near their all-time high versus Bitcoin. So what's the chart to look at? If you can't look at the dollar chart, look at the Bitcoin chart, because there is support and resistance levels. And if you've got nothing else to look at, those will become more important.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually a very good tip. I'm not gonna lie. We do have a question we can answer real fast though before we finish this. And it was Kavik. He put this up and he said, if you had $100 and you could get into only one or two cryptos other than BTC, which ones would be a better choice for the future profits? Okay, well, so my off the top answer to that is the ones that you like. Yes. That's a really boring thing to say, but genuinely, if you don't feel comfortable with investing in something, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
So what I mean is that out of these things that we've talked about today, I'm in them. No, Rob is in them as well, quite heavily, with trading bots that we are building. But I'm in it with my long-term bag, with all of these ones that we've talked about. And, don't say, listen to me. I know I'm boring, Imre, thank you. And hi, Silvio, by the way. But essentially, you need to do some research for yourself. And now that we've talked about these, I would say look into these ones, read about them. There's a bunch of videos. I know James from Invest Answers has videos on these where he goes through a lot of details on it, which is really great. So go and find that, look at that, and then make your own mind up. I would never say invest in Ethereum, invest in Solana. If you like it from seeing data and information about it, then yeah, you should buy that if you like it. And that's it. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Rob, but
that'll do for me.
That'll do for you. Okay,
that'll do for me. That's a good summary.
All right, cool. Well, so thanks for watching. Hope you like this new kind of, we changed it up a little bit this time, and hopefully it was
a bit more structured.
Yeah, a little bit more structured.
So yeah, we'll leave a comment. Anything else you want us to look at next week, and maybe we'll pick a few to take a look at if there are some popular choices.
Yeah. So with that, the best thing you can do is join the Discord and talk to us there, because then we can make our minds up there and we can discuss which ones we want to look at and hang out. Leave a like, subscribe, all that stuff. You know how it works. And we'll see you tomorrow. We're gonna do macro stuff, which is gonna be a lot more discussion, a lot less charts. So we'll see you then. Right? Cool.
Yeah.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.